Welcome to Tome Travelers. This week, we travel into a tome that sends us deep into the forbidden deserts of Athos with Dark Sun. A new creed kindled from despair. Kalak, an immortal sorcerer king whose evil magic has reduced the majestic city of Tyr to a desolate place of dust, blood, and fear. His 1,000-year reign of death is about to end. Banding together to spark a revolution are a maverick statesman, a winsome half-elf slave girl, and a man-dwarf gladiator bred for the arenas. But if the people are to be freed, the mismatched trio of steadfast rebels must look into the face of terror and choose between love and life.
Yeah, and that's a line from the Dark Sun, the Verdant Passage book.
So, did I say those words right? Is it Kalak or is it Kalak?
I don't think it was ever explained because, even the the video games that came out for this at the same time were text-based and had no audio quality.
Oh, okay.
So,
And then Tyr.
Tyr is definitely, I think that's correct.
Okay.
But welcome to Tome Travelers. And this week we are definitely hitting a major property and major part of history for role-playing, which I cannot believe is not currently out.
Are you sure it's not?
Oh, yeah, I'm 100% sure. 100% sure. We'll get to all that, But, of course, this is John and my wife, Roxy, here today.
So, yes, we are doing, as we've said, or if you haven't already figured out, Dark Sun, and the edition that is sitting across from me, maybe this is the only edition, but I am seeing AD&D 2nd edition box.
It is the, there's the box out there, and actually on top of that box should be a magazine.
There is a Dragon magazine.
That magazine is the only copy, it's not the only copy of this thing, but it's the only place that 3rd edition is published for Dark Sun.
Okay. I was going to say, are you about to tell me that you think you have the only copy
of
this issue of Dragon?
No, I have a physical copy of it, and there are people out there that, this is, of course, circulated as PDF on the internet for a while after, Dragon and Dungeon magazine went away. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. So.
We are. We'll discuss that in a minute. He likes to always talk about what was going on at the time.
Of course.
So, what year is this Dragon magazine, though? I want to know.
The Dragon magazine.
How far off was this from the property?
May 2004.
Okay, so quite a while.
Yeah.
Quite a while later. Okay. Because I have here in the notes that you provided me.
Yes.
That Dark Sun was released in 91.
And it feels like it was older than that for some reason.
Oh, but that's pretty old if you think about it. We're coming up on 30 years in 3 years.
I know, but was it really just then? I got the box right here in front of me. Yeah, 1991. This is a TSR box.
Yeah, so we have our historic events of 1991. We don't have many that are listed here. 91 must not have been very exciting, but we had the year Dances with Wolves wins big at the Oscars. So that means that it actually came out in 90, right? Because the Oscars are the following year.
I guess. I never understand the Oscars.
Pretty sure that because the Oscars are getting ready to happen in a couple months here, like right now. So I'm pretty sure that the Oscars are usually at the beginning of the following year because they get the full gamut of movies.
Yeah. And a lot of movies race to get in under the wire at the...
Yeah, because I think the cutoff is like December 12th or something like that.
Yeah, and they all try to get in at the last minute to put their names in the box for it, but yeah.
We also have MC Hammer and Janet Jackson win big awards for their music that year as well. MC Hammer. And
the
Reverend.
Yeah, the only
MC
album that I think that he had that did well was Hammer Time, his first album.
Yeah. Too legit to quit.
Well, that was the second album.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, it was the second album.
I don't know.
First album was Stop, Hammer Time, and
Too Legit to Quit wasn't on that record?
No, that was actually the second one.
Wow.
Yeah.
91, I was 6 for most of that year, so no, I don't know.
Oh, well. It, for me, was a interesting time. And of course, my sister was a huge Janet Jackson fan. So when Rhythm Nation came out, she was in Drill Team, and so yeah.
See, I didn't even know Rhythm Nation was Janet Jackson. That tells you how out of touch I am. I assumed it was like Gloria Estefan or something. Rhythm is gonna get you. So
yeah,
I just
she has a lot of rhythm songs.
So I would have assumed that
Rhythm
she
is gonna get you. The Rhythm of the Night. Dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. Yeah,
I don't know.
That's Gloria Estefan as well. So
I didn't know.
Interesting.
You also have Freddie Mercury passed away.
I know. One of my favorite musicians of all times.
Were you a fan of him then? Had you heard any of his music then? I didn't think so.
It was, I had heard some of his stuff in Highlander. The music that Queen did for that was absolutely breathtaking.
So, I didn't even know that they did the music for that.
Yeah.
I've never seen it.
I know. It's
We've
one of those
talked
things,
about this.
Yeah. When the new one comes out, we'll go see it together. But it's very hard to go back to...
Is that a threat?
Yes. It's very hard to go back to the old movies and watch them these days. My mindset is I can watch all those classics and love them still because I can put myself in the headspace I was back then. But nowadays, it's like, if you don't have that headspace for the kind of movies that were coming out and the semi-schlocky, weird stuff from that era, then none of it comes out good. So, but the new one, I'm certain, many people my age will be absolutely horrified with the new Highlander, and I'll think, hey, it's actually pretty good, much like I did with Ghost in the Shell.
What is it even about? I know there's a sword.
Yeah. Immortals who are basically fighting throughout the ages for the fate of the planet.
And they're Scottish.
One of them is.
Oh, just one of them? Okay.
Yeah.
I know you say Highlander, and that's all I think of is the Scottish Highlands.
Yeah, there's one Highlander, and Sean Connery plays a Spaniard, so go figure that one. But anyway, we're getting off topic.
Yeah, I don't really want to talk about something I'm not interested in at all.
But Needful Things by Stephen King releases as a book, and also The Sum of All Fears by Tom Clancy. So those are things that have been made into movies and have been, those movies have been around for forever.
Yeah, it was 1991. I'm trying to think if I did anything. I don't remember anything. That was the year I was in first grade at the beginning of that year. Yeah. So if that doesn't make you feel old, because you graduated high school 5 years later.
Yeah.
And I was in elementary school.
Yeah.
Cradle robber. But I don't know anything of that era, and I can't think of anything. None of these things are anything that interests me. So none of these things affected me. I mean, Freddie Mercury was great and all, but I mean, he was
gone by the time you really knew it.
He's like John Lennon.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't realize John Lennon was gone, but when I found out that he had died, I was like, oh, well, he's been gone my entire life. I had no idea. Yeah. For someone who was so influential, but I didn't really get into Freddie Mercury until late high school. I didn't know his name. Yeah. I knew some of his songs, but mostly because of Mighty Ducks.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. Okay. Everybody knows those songs. We Will Rock You and We Are the Champions. Mm-hmm. So that is also the year, obviously, that Dark Sun comes out.
Mm-hmm. Came out.
Well, yeah. Okay.
Mind your tenses, sir.
So
Let's
be it.
not sound like your mother was an English teacher and you have a college education. You can at least use the correct tense. Very
well. With Dark Sun, it was created by Timothy Brown, Troy Denning, and Mary Kirchhoff for TSR, which was basically, the precursor.
The original D&D. Yeah. That was Gygax's.
This is Gygax's company, the precursor and holder of D&D before Wizards of the Coast. So Timothy Brown, I think he had been with Games Workshop prior, and
Design Traveler.
Well, he designed Traveler. But
Traveler 2300.
Yeah, that's probably his biggest thing that he is associated with before this game.
Okay.
Dark Sun, that he designed Traveler 2300. And later went on to be the director of game development at TSR. So, he went on from this. I would not be surprised if Dark Sun is what really propelled him. Because this is a property that people still rave about.
Yeah.
Troy Denning had worked for Mayfair Games before joining TSR. And Mary Kirchhoff was a writer And she was like the head of fiction development for TSR, and wrote books, like fiction novels, back in the day where people kind of still treated them as if they were just dime store novels. Nobody really had a lot of respect for sci-fi and fantasy at that time. But, she came out of that era, I should say, and alongside people like Margaret Weiss, who now has her own game company and is pretty famous for all the things she does. Now, Mary Kirchhoff is actually still involved in sci-fi and fantasy writing, and she works for Tor Books, TOR, and most people know them because of things like Ender's Game and Terry Goodkind's Legend of the Seeker. So,
yeah, I mean, they're a pretty famous imprint, but I also feel like they're also kind of an infamous imprint.
Probably. I mean, they've been around a while, and they were definitely a part of the pulp sci-fi era.
I was going to say, do they have stuff that's a little bit on the smuttier side, too?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, yeah, that's what I always seem to... I seem to associate with their imprint. But yeah, I mean, they are a big sci-fi fantasy. It's one of those things where you get a lot of the same stuff from them that you could also get from Science Fiction Book Club.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, these three names came together and basically designed this game. Mary Kirchhoff is I always like discussing her a little bit because she had such a huge part in this. And I think it's important to point out that this game system, Dark Sun, has a female as one of the core creators. That there is a woman who was a core creator of a system that is well loved and still largely discussed by gamers throughout the world. Mm-hmm. It was not originally made as a role-playing game, but instead TSR made this mini combat game that, basically in the vein of like Warhammer or what's some of the other ones that
War Machine.
Oh, War Machine and all these other things. They basically tried to do that. And it was called, TSR's Battle System. And the idea was to have a fantasy system, obviously, for, something to compete with a competing product for Warhammer.
Was Warhammer around then?
Yes.
Well, yeah, I mean, if it was games... they brought on a guy from Games Workshop.
Specifically with this, yes.
Yeah.
And it is today considered the most lucrative and successful world...
Dark Sun, not
Dark
Battle
Sun.
System.
Yeah, Dark Sun is now considered to be one of the most lucrative and successful worlds ever produced by TSR other than Greyhawk and Ravenloft. Mm-hmm. It's amazing to me because there are so many products that they did with this. Like I said, I'm just shocked that this is not out for 5th edition yet.
Yeah, but I can imagine. I mean, a lot of the old stuff has not been released for 5th edition. I almost think that they expect people to do it themselves.
Probably.
If you want to use that setting, use it. But
and that of course is the thing. If the fan community is already producing stuff for that, will they purchase it if you put out something?
Right.
That probably
because
is a good
there
question.
are games out there that for like Eberron.
Yeah.
And they've never put out official D&D 5th edition stuff for Eberron. It's just you do what you do, and
this is probably at the same time. I don't know if you would actually like this world because it is Dark Sun is like that post-apocalyptic fantasy where the world has been ruined.
Okay, so it's almost like Mad Max type stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
from a distance, what I can see of the, well, I'll tell you right now, Dark Sun makes me, for whatever reason, makes me think of deserts, and it might just be the color of this box.
And it's a planet that's a desert.
And listeners, if you don't know, I have a serious aversion to the desert and to sand. It's irrational. And it doesn't make any sense, but it's been a thing for a lot of years now, and I have a hard time. Too many commercials and movies and TV shows having cars stranded in the desert with no water or gasoline, and it just freaks me right out. So, spending time in a desert land in a game just doesn't sound fun. So, but from here, that aside, I was thinking more Conan-esque.
And it has those elements as well, obviously.
Okay.
I mean, you look at it.
That's another dusty, sandy franchise that I generally stay away from.
But the whole barbarian angle. But it's a world that most post-apocalyptic worlds have been destroyed by nuclear war or industrialization, whatever. Mm-hmm. This world, it was destroyed by magic.
Okay.
magic kills. And this is a very interesting thing. Dark Sun introduced this idea that magic, even in our world, runs off the life force around it.
Mm-hmm.
And so in our world, or in any other world, I mean, obviously this is the real world, magic, whatever, doesn't really exist. But the thing is that in like a fantasy realm, you cast your spell and it drains life force from the world, but there's so much life in the world, it really has no effect.
Mm-hmm.
But in Dark Sun, because there's not much left, your magic could drain you, it could drain the people around you, it could drain the life, like plant life in your immediate area, if there is any.
Mm-hmm.
And so magic is destructive, and magic users are oftentimes bad guys, except for a rare few who sacrifice little bits of their own life to cast magic.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So, yeah.
Interesting.
And evil spellcasters will use the life force of slaves,
Mm-hmm.
and that they keep, and those who are unlucky to be around at the time, to power their spells.
Yeah.
So
generally we see in fantasy that it's evil sorcerers or wizards or
mm-hmm.
casters that use things like blood magic.
Yeah.
It's a facet of magic where you can use life essence
mm-hmm.
to power something, but only bad guys do that.
Yeah.
Where it sounds like in this, it doesn't matter even if you have the most well intentions
mm-hmm.
or good intentions, you're still allowing force to be drained. Even if you're sacrificing a part of yourself, it's
Yep.
still feeding off. Perpetuating magic is perpetuating a unsustainable system.
Exactly. Which, again, largely leans towards Conan, where even in the Conan universe, the vast majority of magicians and spellcasters are usually bad guys,
Mm-hmm.
and their magic is seen as destructive.
Okay.
But this world also largely is empires, these guys who are at the head, who oftentimes work beneath a great spellcaster or dragon.
Okay.
And it's kind of a trickle-down thing where the majority of the society are slaves.
Okay.
So think, ancient
See, and
Egypt kind of thing.
That's hard to... That just doesn't sound like a
Oh,
fun
no, and,
setting.
Uh,
It sounds pretty awful.
yeah, and there's actually people who, because of this, and we'll go ahead and touch on this, we're entering into a much more, I don't want to say politically correct age, but maybe a little bit better mannered age, where the idea of making slavery a plot topic
Mm-hmm.
and making it something playable, where a player could have slaves,
Mm-hmm.
is something that people that turns off a lot of people.
Yeah, I
and
mean,
rightfully so.
it's the Five Tribes argument.
Mm-hmm.
It's the when they did Five Tribes on tabletop, their edition of the game still referred to one of the commodity cards as
Mm-hmm.
slaves, which for the time period that the game is depicting or supposed to be played in, that was a thing that was happening,
Yes.
but they took the initiative to not call them slaves. I think they called them workers or assistants.
Yeah.
I think they're called workers or assistants in the game that we have. So
Mhm.
it's people who really thrive on that. I can imagine if I were at a table where someone was actively creating slaves as part of their character, that would really
Yeah.
bother me.
Yeah. This isn't something that would be cool to mess around with. And
It just seems like it's
Yeah.
tacky.
Yeah. And I mean, it's one thing for us to say it happened. It's another thing to actively make it part of a.
Let's make it part of our fun time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
That's
wrong.
a problem for me.
And so that might be one of the reasons why 5th edition isn't coming out for Dark Sun.
Could be.
But we don't know that for sure, and we'll get to that.
And they could always change it too. But
Yeah. But this game actually introduced something that you would kind of like, and that is there are several new races in this game, and one of them is actually called the Mole or Mule, depending on who you talk to, which is a half human and half dwarf.
it's interesting that they call it that because clearly they're implying just in name alone that it couldn't reproduce. That's
Yeah.
one of my biggest pet peeves in fantasy settings
Mm-hmm.
is the idea that for whatever reason, half-elves can
Are the only.
they can proliferate their race for their extended lifespans freely, willy-nilly, however they want to. But everybody else, if they mate with a human, oh, well, you're immediately, you're naturally sterile.
Yeah, you're either naturally sterile or the person does not get impregnated.
Yeah.
You know, that's the other side. Is like usually in most fantasy, dwarves and humans, even if they mated, would not create offspring.
Yeah.
And so this is one of the few fantasy worlds where new races start to come up, besides just, the half-elf or the half-orc.
Yeah.
And
it's like there is a serious lack of appreciation. I mean, it's already fantasy, guys, okay? We're already dealing with essentially alien races. We're already dealing with elves and dwarves and orcs and goblins and halflings and this, that, and the other. And you want to tell me that only one of that is true? That shows elvish fanboy all over it.
yeah.
I hate it. Somebody, probably Gary Gygax or somebody on his team, loved Legolas so much. And I'm just like, no. One of the worst characters in the book, my opinion. I don't like him. I think elves are arrogant. We know this. But I'm just like, come on, guys. That just shows how skewed it is towards this idea, this Tolkien fantasy land where, elves are the best humans ever because they love nature and they don't want to destroy things. Okay, I get that. That's cool.
Yeah.
Hippie humans with pointy ears. I get it. And they live a long time, and that's why they appreciate the earth, because they see what happens. But for heaven's sakes.
Yeah. No, I agree, and we've had this discussion before many times.
This will be cut out and put on a special, but I'm glad to see that they have made. But again, the name implies you are a mule.
Yeah.
If it happens, you're a one-off. It can. It's not something that you can make. Mm-hmm. You're not gonna have an offspring, even if you mate with another half dwarf. It's just frustrating.
It is. But they actually end up changing the way the races are represented.
Oh, okay.
In this game, every race is different from any other fantasy world. Mm-hmm. But, we could literally wax through the whole show just discussing the way they changed the races for this. I mean, it's something worth looking into. But at the same time, this game also began the ties to psionics in the Dungeons & Dragons universe, which is a way to do magic, essentially, without magic. It is the power of the mind. It's...
okay.
Think almost like superpowers with the brain.
Yeah, you're like Mind Flayer type crap.
Yeah, exactly. Mind Flayers are psionic creatures. But at the same time, I think that you want to talk about something that's a little bit fanboyish. Is psionics, because psionics are usually overpowering because it's one of those things where it's so new, nobody is able to defend themselves really against it if they don't already have psionics.
Well, magic is that way too.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest. Magic in RPGs is historically and always OP. Yeah. Always.
Oh yeah.
And it makes sense. I don't have to like it.
I just wish they would do the same for physical characters, that there is a chance for a physical character to exceed what magic is, at the highest levels. Yeah. But that's just me.
This is just turning into an RPG rant.
But
we're not actually talking about the product.
But so Dark Sun, made a lot of changes, made a lot of the right moves, and made a lot of moves that, obviously might not be the best. But it produced a series of RPG products, novels, tons of them. I mean, the present Pentad, the quote that you read, the long quote, was from a book series that is regarded today as one of the best series in Dark Sun.
Oh, okay.
It also, let me see, video games. I know of 2 video games because I actually played 2 of them. Mm-hmm. And these were on computer, and just after the whole boom of like Sierra and the initial graphic games of fantasy, this one was a top-down style fantasy, much like the original Fallout.
Oh, okay.
And then it also came out as a short-lived MMO, which actually has the distinction of being the first graphic, full graphic fantasy MMO on the web.
Okay.
It was out before Warcraft. It was out before EverQuest. It was out before, I don't remember the one.
I don't know MMOs.
Call of Acheron was before that, and then this was before even Call of Acheron.
Okay.
And it even had comics. I mean, they have done a lot with this property.
Mm-hmm. Comics, to me, make sense for RPGs.
Yeah.
That's what, I mean, it's essentially what you
Mm-hmm.
want. I think they fit better than novels, personally, but I think just because comics kind of have that over-the-top.
Yeah.
Novels are fine, but I don't know. Comics seem like a natural.
It does, but fantasy comics, when a lot of this came out, were not big, except for
Yeah.
like heavy metal and Frazetta-like stuff.
Yeah.
You know.
So just nudity.
Roughly. Bulging muscles and
bulging muscles.
everything else
well-endowed
bulging.
women.
You know.
Yeah.
So.
Gross.
Yeah. You know, this is a property that even after TSR went out of business, you know, the Dark Sun community kept alive. And there is a well-known fan website to give a shout out to, anthus.org, still out there, still pumping out the stuff, still a very strong community.
See, are they doing homebrew? I mean, they can't release it, but for cost, but they're probably doing 5th edition homebrew stuff.
It's free to the web, typed out stuff, people adding their own 2 bits. Nobody's reusing any art really that isn't like fan made.
Right.
And nobody's charging for it, which of course is always, the wise thing.
Awesome.
But yeah, I mean, so big shout out to them, and I'm glad that there are people out there keeping this property alive and, embracing it for what it's supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
That was the 2nd edition, and it's come along. And the magazine, that is the only simple version of Dark Sun that was put out for 3rd edition. That is the only thing that they did, was that magazine.
Right.
And that was put out by Dungeon Magazine, which had a contract with Dungeons and Dragons. It's a weird thing. They became Paizo.
Dragon magazine.
No, that's Dragon? Okay. Then
similar letters.
My apologies. There was a Dragon magazine and there was a Dungeon magazine.
Yeah, and there's a barbarian man blocking off half the word, so I understand.
But
I knew that became Paizo.
Yeah. And they did put out a official setting book. Wizards of the Coast put out an official setting book for 4th edition. And it received fair accolades from the players of that system. Kevin and Chelsea, who played 4th edition, they actually really enjoyed that world. And I understand that for that one, they kind of changed a little bit of the backstory to make it a little bit more politically correct to this generation.
So probably dealt with the slavery somewhat.
Yeah. But that was announced at Gen Con 2009. Yeah. So
that's been a long time ago, too.
That has been a while. Very popular property. And obviously... I brought them down so that you can have a look at them. I mean, so the Dark Sun, AD&D 2nd edition Dark Sun.
Looks like it's got a ogre.
Something, yeah, possibly an orc or ogre.
It doesn't. I always imagine the orcs. I always feel like in the Dungeons and Dragons settings, the orcs always have the big tusks on their lower jaw.
Yeah, that's true.
And this gentleman does not.
Yep.
I believe it's a man.
But this is of course I don't even know what you would call it. I mean,
that thing in the bottom though, with all the drool flying out of his mouth.
Yeah. That's the idea.
I know, but just still.
But it is
being grossed out,
you can't really call it a clamshell. It's more almost like a puzzle box, and it's very similar to like Solaris 7 and BattleTech.
It's a board game box.
It's a board game box, exactly.
And so you have the Wanderer's Journal.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the rules book with the same ugly guy on the front. The Way of the Psionicist.
Mm-hmm.
It has like a honeycomb looking... Oh, it's supposed to look like leather. Mystery of the Ancients. The Wanderer's Chronicle. We got lots of maps.
Yep.
And
you can see...
that's probably a GM screen.
Yep.
It's old school.
Very, very, very old school. It's one of those games where they give you everything they possibly can in a box.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you saw on the maps. I mean, it has a very Egyptian feel to it.
Yeah,
if you look at the maps.
It looked. It's funny. For some reason, it was making me think more Asian.
Yeah,
farther
it can.
out. I mean, I don't know what it is about the font or the art, but it was making me think more that direction. Oh,
Yeah.
the 1991 Fall Winter Catalog
For TSR.
for TSR. Is this more? The Spring Summer Catalog for TSR, and on the back, Buck Rogers
Yep.
in the 25th century. I don't know if it's a game or no, it's just a book.
Just a book.
Just a book. And I believe this is a customer response card.
Mm-hmm.
Should send that in. We've got 2 of them. See if we can get a letter
I don't
back.
think that's going to work.
Yeah, I doubt it. So I pulled out the rules book to take a closer look. Let's see here.
I mean, so it is, cardboard box, game
Cardboard
box.
boxes when they weren't trying to like completely rip you off every 5 seconds by releasing a new hardbound massive book.
It is packed full.
Mhm.
Now, the books are all soft bound, which I'm glad they put them in a box so that they don't just disintegrate on a shelf.
Mm-hmm.
The paper quality is okay.
I mean, it
looks
tells
you
age.
where. Oh yeah, it looks its age, and it tells you where the game industry was at this time. And this is 91. I mean, games earlier than this still had the similar look to it.
Yeah. I mean, it's like 2-color printing,
Yep.
2-3-color printing maybe. I am gonna say,
Mm-hmm.
mark it here. She's not listed as a writer.
Yeah,
She's a special thanks.
she was, she is a creator of the system.
Okay. Now a lot of this, none of them are really.
Mm-hmm.
These are all additional things.
Yeah, this is one of the weird
This
parts.
is Monty Cook.
Yep.
So yeah, she's not involved in either of these. Just these 2.
Well, it's just the world as a whole she is part of its creation.
Okay.
Obviously they hired other writers and brought in other people, but
Okay.
yeah.
It looks old. I mean, my only experience really with role playing has been modern gaming. So this was probably fascinating and really cool in 91.
Yeah, it was.
But there's so much better
today,
available today that.
And I don't have any 4th edition products really to bring out like the Dark Sun for that to compare. And even then, I will say most of the 4th edition books that I saw did look pretty. I didn't really care for the system personally, but that's, it was this a system that was not for me. And I played Paizo while other people played 4th edition.
Right. And now.
And now I've moved back to 5th edition. Largely.
And a lot of our play group has kind of left the Paizo way, which is sad, but
It's
also understandable to some degree. Some of our friends have very good reasons for why they've left the system, and once they shared those reasons and we verified those reasons, it was
But at the same time, I'm hoping Starfinder
does something different
and builds and expands, and that's
we
what I'm
need
waiting
to take
for.
a deeper look at Starfinder. I'd like to roll a character for that using the system.
But I got into Dark Sun obviously when I was very young and with friends. It is the second setting that I ever played for D&D that I played after Greyhawk.
Okay.
This was probably the time when my parents started to realize that role-playing games were great for reading, and I was not very good at reading, and basically this is the point where they began to be very supportive and say, here, if it gets you reading, if it gets you looking into math and reading and expressing creativity, then this is good. And so, I do want to say my parents did not always have it out for D&D, and in fact, they've wanted to play themselves. So,
really?
Well, my mother
Your
has.
mom would
Yes.
like. I see something that I'm very disappointed in.
Oh, what?
Bard, races allowed.
Yes, this is
Human and half elf. See what?
Yeah, racial
What?
restrictions. This was part of the fallout. That we've had this discussion before. In the original Dungeons and Dragons, races and classes were kind of tied together, and then when you moved into Second Edition and Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, they began to allow you to choose, but they still placed restrictions on certain things based on the preconception of Tolkien and other fantasy writers. Because to them, nobody had thought Dwarven Bard, and nobody had thought
Dwarves don't have
Elven
culture.
Barbarian.
Dwarves don't have enough culture. They don't want to sing. They just want to spill blood and drink ale.
Yeah.
What?
But that was, one of the things that everybody was, as a result of these games, obviously we've come out of that era.
Yes, thankfully. See, I'm glad. These are the things that make me happy that I didn't have to game in this era.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, not that this is bad. It's just, really, class should not be racially restricted.
No, it should not.
Not the type of class that we're talking about here. I mean, we're talking about occupations.
Yeah.
Essentially,
But things were very typecast in this era.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed the setting, getting to play it. I thought I played a mole, and I played a gladiator, and I enjoyed it. I moved on to the fiction novels when I moved and could no longer play because I moved away from my hometown and lost my gaming group for a while, and I got into the video games, which I was very thankful for the old TSR line of video games. I've ran it a few times as an adult, just for the nostalgia purpose. I do still enjoy it, but obviously the things that people consider problematic with the game, I have not pulled this out in quite some time. It's one of those things where there's so many games coming out right now. When am I going to get back to this?
Yeah.
And I would have to put in right now, if I were to run this, I would have to put in all the work to create the classes, how the races work within the gaming system, whatever.
It's very interesting. Like, I'm kind of just flipping through and looking more at their system here, because I've my experience with anything prior to 5th edition is nil. Well, I won't say nil. I have rolled a character in 3.5 or 3.
You've rolled it in 3.
3.
Yeah.
So 3rd edition. But I'm looking at their class progression scale.
Yes.
Or table, and humans have unlimited advancement potential.
Yeah.
They can go to whatever level they can go to while you're playing.
Yes.
They're only limited by the story. Half-elves can also be every class. Humans and half-elves are the only two that can be every class. But half-elves have probably about half of the classes. They are restricted on how many levels they can take in that class. And it just gets worse the farther down you go. Which I'm not sure what a Thri-Kreen is. Thri-Kreen?
Thri-Kreen were, think, praying mantises.
Okay, I've seen a picture in there. But yeah, like, they're unlimited psionicists. But that's it. Everything else, the highest thing that they can take is they can be a druid or a fighter at level 16. And see, that kind of stuff, that doesn't make sense to me. Yeah. As a player, what if they're a really good druid? Why is that? That's what I don't understand.
It's typecasting. It is literally typecasting because
they can't even be thieves, which that makes sense because people aren't. I can see some of it. Yeah. Okay, if a Thri-Kreen comes up to you, you're going to be watching that, and probably in this world. I don't know, but it makes sense that they wouldn't be able to steal very easily. Yeah. Because they're just different. They're going to stand out in certain crowds. They could probably steal from other Thri-Kreens. Yeah. With no issue, but.
And possibly steal in a different way that respects and understands, honestly, their anatomy. I hate to put it any other way, but, just because something is different doesn't mean it's going to be bad.
They can't be a bard. Mules can't be bards. Halflings can't be bards. Half giants, elves, and dwarves can't be bards. And I'm like, why not? That's the thing. That's what's interesting to me about this is that's one thing that I'm noticing. Is at least I don't feel like 5th edition is that restricted. No,
it's not.
It feels like everybody can be whatever.
Everybody can be
whatever you want.
Anything. And this is an era of gaming. Now, I don't think it's in this book, but there are other books where your gender could also restrict you or could change your stats.
That doesn't surprise me, but I'm glad that they've moved away from that. Yeah, because even Tolkien.
Had warrior women. And
had Éowyn, who, went into battle as pretended to be a man to go into. They had their own. There's no reason for this woman to be held back from what she wishes to do. She is no weaker. In fact, she was stronger than the men To the point, wasn't it her? Was it her brother or her cousin that Aomer,
Her brother was the leader of the riders.
the Rohirrim?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so he gets executed, and he just takes off, and she's like, "What the heck?"
Yeah.
Someone has to do this. But anyway, I digress. But no, so that's kind of frustrating. It'd be cool. I can see how people would want this to be. I think it deserves a run at 5th edition.
Yeah.
But the fans may do better may do it better service than. It all depends. Sometimes you get the fan groups, that can't stand modern whatever. I mean, you have the MRAs now that have made the 47-minute cut of Last Jedi that takes out all the women. Or reduces their screen time because they know how better to make a film, and they didn't like and it's like, guys. So I don't know, maybe the fans would do a disservice.
Possibly, and we definitely are finding that the more things change, the more things stay the same, and the more obvious some of the problems in the role-playing community become.
Right.
But we're at the same time. Now, I will say this, that obviously there has been, like I've said, no announcements for expansions or books for Dark Sun in 5th edition. But in a Reddit thread, Mike Merles was asked, and now the question, could you confirm both Dark Sun and Ravenloft are coming back? And he responded, I can't confirm anything, but I can say that we're big fans of the classic D&D settings. When we created the core 5th system, we knew that it was flexible enough to both cover past D&D settings and have the ability to stretch to cover new ones. So now Forgotten Realms is the core setting right now for Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. The game that I was running for you, that takes place in the world of Forgotten Realms.
Yeah.
So
that's kind of their core.
It is now, with 2nd edition, Greyhawk was considered one of their core worlds because that was Gary Gygax's start.
Yeah.
Forgotten Realms came along after. But it's one of those things that, okay, right now they're saying no. And at the same time, D&D 5th edition is releasing at a much slower pace, which I actually kind of like.
Yeah, because they were kind of, they dropped a lot real fast. Now you had the Rise of, the Horde of the Dragon Queen came out, the Rise of Tiamat.
Yes.
And you had Out of the Abyss, which we have. Now you have the Tales of the Yawning Portal, which is the closest that they've currently got to covering old settings or old adventures. Right? Or old dungeons, I think, essentially. But they do like the Sunless Citadel or something, and it's got several older settings in it. But yeah, they have slowed down. I mean, they just released, Xanathar's Guide.
But compared to, like, say, Paizo, who is releasing at least 3 books a month. A month.
Well, like small books.
Yeah, small books. And probably one large core book every quarter, maybe even faster than that. That's a lot of material. That's a lot of material. And so I actually really like D&D 5th edition for, the fact that it's going at the pace that it's going.
Well, and it's Dungeons and Dragons to me as a newish player, as a more recent newcomer. D&D is a lot more. D&D 5th is a lot more digestible as a system. Than Pathfinder and Galarian, because of the fact that Paizo has released so much. I'm not disparaging their work at all. It's just so much. It's daunting to a new player when you go into a game shop and there's 2 shelves full of just Pathfinder. Even our game library, there is so much Pathfinder up there.
Yeah, because I used to do their subscription services.
And we have friends that still do the subscription service.
And so every book that, every month or 2, I was getting a box filled with books.
Yeah.
And so, and
that's cool, but it's expensive and it's just so much. You unless you have a regular group that just wants to sit and play Pathfinder, but there's so many other games out there.
Yeah.
I mean, that's part of why we wanted to do this show, is because there's so many systems and settings that currently on the market, they're either not readily available. I can't walk into my GameStop or my game store and find it on the shelves. Half the time they can't even order them because there's just not enough demand for them to order something like that. So I'm going to Drive-Thru-RPG or places like that to find PDFs, which are a lot more readily available now. A lot of the stuff that we've covered is findable on Drive-Thru-RPG.
Yes.
So is it technically out of print? Kind of. I mean, I think you can get it printed.
Kind of. I mean,
Drive-Thru-RPG.
there are games that we're going to cover that are still available on Drive-Thru-RPG, which I love, but they also are games that are not available for print and are not advertised.
They're officially out of production from the publishing house. They're not going to make
new material
unless they change what they're doing. But that's kind of why I like what we're doing on this show, because I get to see these things now, and I also get to see stuff that I'm like, I don't want to play that.
Yeah.
Dark Sun does not sound like something I want to play.
Oh yeah, I know.
Aberrant, what we talked about earlier.
Last show, yeah.
Does not sound like something I want to play. But I'm also, I mean, we have different
tastes, and at the same time,
different comfort zones in our entertainment.
Yeah.
Superheroes are very much yours.
Yeah.
And cyberpunk is very much yours.
Yeah.
I'd rather have space. Space and aliens. Yeah. Give me space and aliens all day.
Space, aliens, and sci-fi. Yeah,
sci-fi.
Yeah, she is definitely looking forward to that coming out from
The Expanse.
Green Ronin. Yeah,
this year. But yeah, so this, I'm sure it's beloved by who experienced it almost 30 years ago. I would not be surprised if it made a reappearance in some form or fashion.
But at the same time, I was mentioning the publishing speed for 5th edition right now, because it might come out, but it might be a while.
So. And who knows? Mike Merles was also, he kind of frustrates me. I mean, he's having a good time. He's experiencing one of the best renaissances in the gaming movement that he's probably ever seen. But, throwing out teasers and murmurs that 6th edition is on the rise, or on the horizon, potentially. And it's like...
Don't say that.
Don't say that. It's not been long enough. 5th edition is a great system.
It is a great system. It's publishing at a rate that I feel people are able to keep up with the books as they come out.
You can do... I mean, they released the two original adventures, I think, very quickly after they released...
Which was smart.
Yeah. Because it gave people some time to play some stuff and get comfortable with the system before they started releasing a lot of the other stuff. I don't want to become that person that's like, if you don't play D&D 5e, we're not going to play. No. Because I've met those people too, who are like, I won't play anything but 2nd edition.
If it doesn't have a D20, I won't play it.
Well, I have encountered online guys that were like, if you play anything past Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, you're not, this won't work out. I won't lie, on geek dating sites.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That was literally on their list of requirements. If you play anything but Advanced Dungeons and Dragons,
and you wonder why you're
I'm
single.
not interested in even talking to you, let alone dating you. And I'm like, okay, I won't tell you what I called them, but
oh, it's all good. I mean, I have worse things I probably would call them, but that's just me.
But that kind of stuff, I mean, have your favorite game system. Just don't be a jerk about it.
But so that is your first thing to look at for AD&D.
Yeah, this is my first introduction to AD&D. And I mean, it looks neat. I didn't look at the back of the box.
It has a very definitive production appearance.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can go up to the library and look at everything that comes in a box like that and know what era it came out in.
Well, and this is what my dad wants. My dad called me yesterday specifically to tell me he had started listening to the Critical Role podcast, which, if you don't know, Critical Role is a live streamed D&D 5th edition podcast put out originally by Geek and Sundry, also available now on Project Alpha. It's been going on online now for 3 years, I think. Yeah, 3 years. It'll be 3 years this March.
Just 3 years?
3 years this March for online.
Okay.
Their game had gone on 2 years before that. But anyhow, it's voice actors. I'm sure you've heard of it if you're in the gaming community. We're big fans of it here. Yep. We've seen them live. We've met the cast. They're great people. But my dad he called me. He was like, I think this is the one that you like, right? And I said, yeah, we in fact, we're watching it right now. And he was like, I'm really enjoying it. He's like, I think I want to play D&D the next time, you guys come up.
And I'm absolutely thrilled.
Yeah. He wants to play. He's like, no, I'd really like to do that.
I just want to say that Roxy's parents sharing in something that we're passionate about really means a lot to us.
Oh yeah, it's very cool. And he's like, I thought that was the thing you liked. He said, and I saw it come up, and I said, I'm going to listen to it. But he was like, I wish there was just like a box where I could grab a box and it would have everything I need. And I said, well, they have starter kits now. I mean, they do have boxes, but they have a quick set rule, book. And and you can download. I mean, that is one thing. Wizards of the Coast allows you to download a player's handbook, essentially a player's handbook and a dungeon master's guide. Yeah. They're not the full ones, but they're enough to get you started.
It's equivalent of a wiki. It's like a wiki's worth of material without all the graphics and other stuff.
Yeah. And so, but he was like, I just want a box. So these are cool that you have these all-in-one sets, and they were so cheap.
Yeah.
$20. You can't even get a supplement book for $20 anymore. I know it's 30 years later, but
$20 for a lifetime worth of fun with that game. When
this
that's
is
probably
playable
the equivalent
still.
For me when that came out. That's the equivalent of 3 or 4 action figures.
Yeah.
Where are my action figures?
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I was gonna say this is still playable.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got all the material to roll up a character, lay out the maps, and get going. And we could play this right now. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's really cool. And I'm it looks like a setting. I know a lot of people that would really love this type of setting. It's just not the setting that interests me. So,
but we will be hitting on some of those coming up because we haven't touched on some of the older sci-fi stuff, but I do have some.
I'm sure. And I'm sure it's just as hokey and cringeworthy as some of this is. So
anyway, thank y'all so much for tuning in, and be sure to come back next week when
where my drawer flowers?
Thanks guys. See y'all soon.
Bye-bye. You've been listening to Tome Travelers. Please subscribe to get our episodes as soon as they release. For more information about us, check out passionerdly.com, @passionerdly on Twitter and Instagram, as well as facebook.com/passionerdly. Also, if you're interested in supporting our show, look us up at patreon.com/passionerdly. Once again, thank you for listening.
This has been a production of the Southgate Media Group. For more podcasts like this one, head over to southgatemediagroup.com.